the stage is set, or I should say reset, for United States versus Canada. And there'll be another stage that's reset locally. Maybe not as big a deal. Good morning to you. Good Tuesday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is Daily Shot of Penguins. It comes your way bright and early every weekday if you're into football and or baseball. I also offer daily shots of Steelers and Pirates in the same place that you found this. Canada beat Finland yesterday in Boston, clinching a spot in the final against the United States, which had already clinched and thus rendered its follow-up game last night against Sweden completely moot. For what it's worth, the Swedes won. And this Titanic event will take place Thursday night at TD Garden. And this other less than Titanic event that I referenced will take place at 2 o'clock this afternoon in Cranberry. And that, of course, is your Pittsburgh Penguins, at least the remainder of them, getting back together for their first practice in several days. Now, I'll be on hand to cover the latter, and I'm not going to lie to you, I think there's some stuff to look forward to there. What's Yevgeny Malkin's health status going to be? My expectation going into this break was that Gino would be ready coming out of this break, and that means being ready for back-to-back games this coming weekend, beginning Saturday at home against the Capitals. Now, Brian Rust also went down to injury right before the break, but for all we know, he could actually get recalled by Team USA to play in the gold medal game because they lost 3 forwards, 3 to injury last night in that meaningless game. And if you look at the various skill sets of those who were lost, plus being aware that, Rust has had Mike Sullivan as a head coach before, it might be something of a no-brainer to make him the choice, not to mention he was kind of deserving anyway, with 20 goals already to his name in this NHL season. Who will be back or up from Wilkes-Barre? Remember that there were some recent arrivals just before the break, and one of them in particular I thought played really well, and that's Emil Bemstrom. And they were sent back during the break because, why not? Bottom line, it's going to be more than the standard blah practice session. Also, let's not forget this. Right before the break, all of these games felt like a really big deal. It was just that loss in Philadelphia was the one that just sat there festering at the end. The game just before that, the one in New York, was their performance of the year. Best one I've covered all year, probably the best one they've had all year. And when they do resume this weekend, they will be 6 points out with 25 whole games to go, at least on their own schedule. 6 points is 6 points. Now, there's a lot of teams that they'd have to leapfrog, but it's 6 points. And I'm really, I can kind of sense this. I'm really wasting my time here, huh? You don't want to hear about the Penguins, do you? You're totally into this tournament. You're totally into some of the best hockey you've ever seen in your life. And you're hearing me talk about Penguins versus Capitals like it matters, and like you won't be looking for something else to do as soon as Washington even takes like a 1-0 lead. I got to tell you, I get that. I've come straight back from Olympics, from Winter Olympics in Vancouver and then again in Sochi, Russia. And I've gone from covering those games. By the way, Olympic press boxes aren't really press boxes. They just put you in what would be considered elite seats. Like they clear out space for the press, like down by ice level. So when you see and experience the fastest hockey you've ever seen or experienced, it's electric. It's not like anything else. And I remember thinking about that a lot in flying out of Russia, and I remember thinking about that even more when I got back over here and had my, first, Penguins versus Islanders tilt or something that did nothing for me. By comparison, it's going to be a come down. It's not just going to be that for you, for me, it's going to be that. My goodness, can you imagine? For the participants, meaning the participants in this Four Nations. Fast is the word that leaps to mind. A lot of times when you hear people talk about fast or speed in general, as it relates to hockey, you're thinking just of Connor McDavid or Nathan McKinnon flying around. That's actually not what players and coaches are referencing when they bring it up, in my experience. They're talking about the speed with which events occur, meaning a pass, meaning contact, significant contact, like the way Sid got knocked down yesterday before scoring the empty netter. This is all unusual. This is all, to an extent, unnatural. It shouldn't be happening. This is the equivalent of having, I don't know, a 5 or 6 team league, the original 6 all over again. Only you've got players from all over the planet in that pool now. The best players from all over the planet, even with the Russians rightly kicked out of this thing. Not that Russia wouldn't have a team that would be just as good or at least, comparable to what's in this field. I'm just saying that the 4 that are there are pretty great. And then this weekend's going to come, you're going to turn the TV on and it's going to be, oh, geez. Or even if you're at the game, it's just going to look and feel like a bummer. So maybe that more than anything else is the challenge that faces this group that's going to congregate again this afternoon in Cranberry. They can't afford to get romantic and sentimental about what's happening in Montreal and Boston. They need to still, work toward making the Stanley Cup playoffs. When we come back, J1Q. This episode is brought to you by Bet Online, your number one source for all your summer sports needs this season, from Major League Baseball, golf, NHL, NBA playoffs. Get the latest odds and lines, including all team matchups, player props, odds on just about everything that's out there. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to get in on the action. Bet Online, where the game starts. Today's J1Q comes from Cody. One of the better ones we've had in a while. Cody says, DK, do you think a tournament like this, with different personnel, looks, and line rotations, helps Mike Sullivan take away ideas for the Penguins? I know Kyle Dubas is in charge of acquisitions and trades, but does this provide new ideas and recommendations that Sully can make to management? Oh, okay. I mean, I guess Sully could go to Dubas, I'm just kidding here, obviously, and say, get me both of the Tkachuk brothers. We're going to change the way Pittsburgh hockey looks forever. But, there's certain limitations that everybody has. I wish you'd actually gotten a little bit more specific, Cody, because if I'm Sullivan, and the real Sullivan, not the hypothetical one, not the whatever, if I'm the actual Sullivan, at least based on what I've learned about him, I would go to Dubas in your scenario here and say, this is how this system is supposed to work with all this speed on the wings. This is why we emphasize speed on the wings, we as the Penguins, the way we do. We need to have guys on the wings who can be first on the forecheck, second on the forecheck, if need be. We need to have guys who can make that count in terms of sustaining the attack, not just getting there and winning it, but making an intelligent first pass once you do win it, getting to the net, presenting a good target if you're not going to the net, to continue to keep possession. He has a lot of those types of players, obviously, on this United States roster. But as I'm saying all of this out loud, I'm also picturing what he has on the Pittsburgh roster. And while I'd be a complete idiot to compare the two rosters, I think it's worth stressing here that Sullivan, with Dubas as his GM, has a closer representation to what he wants or needs for his system. In fact, way closer than what he had under Ron Hextall and Brian Burke, who not only didn't get what it was that he wanted, they didn't really care. They didn't even consult him. Do you think Sullivan had anything to do with bringing that version of Michael Granlund? Never mind his 100 goals he scored in this tournament. I'm talking about the version that they actually got, the one who clearly wasn't in the kind of shape that he's in now. The answer, of course, is no, and I've heard stuff that's significantly worse in that context. So when I see the Penguins' current roster, I don't see it as something that's not a fit for the head coach. I see more of that on the back end, but not so much up front. So maybe the next thing Sullivan can say is, all right, I'll take both Tkachuks and Jacob Slavin. But that's it. That's my final offer. I appreciate the question. I appreciate everybody checking out Daily Shot of Penguins. Again, I'm headed to the rink today. We'll be back with another one of these things tomorrow morning.